thank you guys for making the time to join us. We're really excited to share with you our experience of both Matera and Puglia and highlight some of our featured partners as well as accommodations and give you guys some insights on this really incredible region. Yes, these regions, that's true. Yeah, because Matera is not in Puglia, as we'll get to in a moment. So just before we get going, I know many of you have probably had the opportunity to listen in on some of our webinars in the past, but for those of you that have not, we like to just kind of give you a quick overview of who we are, what we do. Basically, our mission is to preserve tradition and culture through meaningful, sustainable, and exceptional travel. So what that means for us is we are partnering directly with local partners that still have a really strong sense of authenticity in their communities. They're sharing something that's likely been passed down to them from generation to generation, and we're spending a lot of time in more off the beaten path destinations. We're also incorporating what we call slow travel. So we're taking a lot more time in one place as opposed to sending clients all over the country to see everything. So we are a full service DMC. We're based here out of Rome. As you can tell, I'm not Italian. I'm from the United States. So I was actually born and raised in Atlanta. But my wife here, Karen, is from Rome. So that's kind of where the multicultural foundation of our company started, and it's continued. So the picture that you see in this slide is actually our whole team that we get together once a year here in Italy, where we kind of talk about the last year, all the lessons learned. And about half of our team are Italian, and they're based all over the country here. And then the other half are still in the United States. So it's a really, really unique connection of the two cultures that we're able to bring to the work that we do. Anything you want to add there?
No.
Okay, great. So just a little bit about how we work. We are heavily invested in R&D. So we travel all over the country. We're based all over the country. So we have local managers, travel designers here in Italy that are based everywhere from Lake Como all the way down to Lecce, now in Sardinia, Sicily, and of course, Rome. So what that means for you guys is, as a DMC, it also allows us the flexibility to accommodate any R&D requests that you guys might have as we're starting to work together. So if you are wanting to really explore a particular region or even a specific experience or accommodation, those are things that we can help to accommodate for you as your partners here. And then, of course, we do provide turnkey itineraries. So we work in Travelify, which is a wonderful tool for us to use when it comes to collaborating on itineraries with our travel advisor partners. And then we provide local management. And what that means is we have somebody that is assigned to each client that you send on one of our itineraries. That person has also been involved in the travel designing, the booking of all of the experiences and accommodations, and they know all of our partners personally. And so what that means is that your client has not only a full-time concierge while they're on their trip, but they also have somebody that is intimately familiar with their itinerary and all of the partners within. So it is kind of that person that is, holding their hand across the entire experience. Anything to add there? Great. All right. Okay. Do you want to cover this really quick?
Sure. Again, just really quickly, turnkey itineraries is what we do best. We can make exceptions with accommodations. If you have some established relationships that you have vetted, just keep in mind that we vet every single accommodation and partner that we work with. So of course, if you're booking your clients to one of your accommodations, we expect that vetting has been done, because our team may not necessarily be able to do that. If you charge a planning fee to your clients, you can meet our minimum budget of 10,000, obviously the small group trip are an exceptions. And then you value sustainable travel with, again, that's used a lot. And today is not the webinar for that, but we do have some great articles on our blog if you're interested to read more about what we mean by sustainable travel. Ideally, we're planning ahead 8 months, 6 months before. Now we're getting into the season of the 2 months, right? The 60 days, 30 days last minute travelers. We can do last minute inquiries, but we do charge a rush itinerary fee for that.
One moment. All right, so let's jump right into Puglia and Matera. All right, awesome. So we always say that like Puglia is not really complete without a stop in Matera. And of course, Matera is not technically in Puglia. It's in Basilicata, which is one of the landlocked regions of Italy, almost landlocked. It's got a little bit of coastline to the south there. But it's a really, really incredible place. And we're going to elaborate a little bit more on it. But just so you guys know, this is why we're talking about Matera, because a lot of these itineraries that we design in Puglia do incorporate at least a couple nights in Matera as well.
And the Puglia map that you see, we don't have time, unfortunately, to talk about all of the areas of Puglia. I get asked a lot about the Gargano, which is in the very north. Happy to get on a call with you and discuss more, but today we're going to focus on the two areas of the Val d'Itria and the Salento coastline.
Perfect. All right. So everybody that's familiar with Puglia, you guys already know, but those of you that may not be, Puglia is the heel of the boot, right? So it's all the way down on the southern tip. So there's a couple really good ways to reach Puglia depending on where you're going. So if you're going to the Val d'Itria, which is a little bit further north, kind of central Puglia, think Bari. Bari is the airport that you want to get to. Otherwise, Brindisi is sort of the gateway to the Salento coast, right? So as you're going further south, Brindisi is a great airport. Both have a lot of really well-connected flights, both throughout Europe and connecting back to the United States. So there is a really exciting piece of news for those looking to travel directly to Puglia, and that is that there's a nonstop flight now from JFK to Bari, and this is by way of Neos Air. So they're a relatively new airline. I have never, yeah, that's what I've understood. I've never personally taken them, but for those of you that have, you'll know that they do a lot of like really sort of discount flights that are kind of long haul international flights. So if anybody's familiar with that airline, we'd love to hear from you. And
your experience, right?
And what your experience has been to, just to kind of see if it's something that that clients would be happy with. So otherwise, if you're in Naples, so think even Amalfi Coast, right? In the Naples area, Campania area, it's about a 3-hour drive. So Bari is about a 3-hour drive from Naples. And then if you go further south in Salento towards like Lecce or Brindisi, are about a 4-hour drive. So it is still a long drive right across the bottom of the boot, but it can be done if your clients are already in the Naples area. That's a reasonable transfer. All right. We go ahead and talk about the.
So really quick, Puglia Matera travel seasons. Of course, this is always shifting as the seasons and the weather changes. But right now, think June through late September, early October, actually, it's getting very busy in Puglia. In fact, lately, all the requests we've gotten are for the fall, for right reasons. Obviously, in September, late September, early October, being further south where it's a little bit warmer, you have the grape harvest. November is amazing, late October to early November, because you have the olive harvest. So that's a very unique experience. And then just know that some hotels will close November through March or April. But of course, we're going to talk about some accommodations that are also open year round. So that's kind of to give you an overview. Now, keep in mind too, depending on where you go, for example, if you're going down to some of the beaches in the Salento coastline, the main tourism is very much still Italian, European, and your clients have to travel during the peak season. Think holidays, think when are Italian kids getting out of school? That's when the beaches are going to flock, right? So in Italy, school year ends of the second week of June and starts back the second week, always around September 13th. So if you can catch, right before those seasons, when you're going to beach towns, you'll avoid some crowds, and also right after a holiday. That's usually a good week to visit.
Awesome.
So what are some of the challenges when it comes to Puglia? Choosing the right home base, concentrated mass tourism. Obviously, we highly discourage getting to Puglia or anywhere in the south for that matter by public transportation. And how much time do you really need? So let's get through and kind of solve some of these challenges together. How do you choose, the right itinerary between these two rich and diverse regions? So part of what gets me really excited when we talk Puglia and work with those a lot of the masseria that have reached kind of the broader Instagram audience, especially in the northern part, in the Valle d'Itria. Think your Borgo Ignazia, right? Think of your really highly Instagrammable spots. We try to steer away with. There is a new masseria that gets restored, technically not new, except that Borgo Ignazia was a little bit of a new development, kind of turned into, you know, this tourist attraction that, according to some of the locals, because I can only speak as far as what the locals that have been impacted directly by it has told me, hasn't done much for that. Again, we're not going to talk about Borgo Ignazia today, but we're going to talk about some amazing accommodations and partners that we work with. And our idea is to create contrast. You know, Matera, Valle d'Itria, Salento, they're all so different and rich in their own way. So how can we create contrast with all of those new masserias and Instagram places popping up every day?
It's really good to mention that, you know, Puglia, and you guys have been hearing about Puglia a lot more, just in the industry, but, you know, Puglia historically up to very recently has been relatively off the radar of most large tour operators and really American travelers in general. So you're catching this really interesting transition where the region itself is becoming very conscious of how to channel and direct responsible and sustainable tourism in a way that continues to preserve the authenticity of these places and these regions. And so they're being very deliberate and very intentional about how they're growing. And it's really interesting to see some of the small businesses that are starting to emerge from this this transition. So we're going to be kind of diving into some of that today, but yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. So our perfect itinerary for this area, and this is an itinerary that we do a lot, both in our small group trip, which we'll be talking a little bit about later, as well as for custom trips, is, you know, 1 to 2 nights in Matera. Matera is a beautiful city. The historic city center is not that big, right? And there's not a huge amount of you're not very close to the sea. Like most of what you'll be doing is within the city of Matera, right? So a couple nights is great. It's a really amazing experience. It is like nothing else in Europe or in the world for that matter. And then, you know, 3 to 4 nights in Valditria, sort of starting in the north, not in the north, but sort of, you know, north of Salento. And then the last 3 or 4 nights in Salento. And usually what we have people do is if they do a true end of their itinerary in the Salento coast, is we'll have them fly out of Puglia in the sea.
Countryside, yeah.
Right. So that kind of gives you guys an idea. So before we start introducing you guys to some of our local partners and some of our featured accommodations, what we always like to do is just get you familiar with our brand score. So this is a system that we've come up with internally as a company. This is something that we use with all of our R&D and all of our accommodation partners. And basically we score each accommodation on the basis of 5 main criteria. Sustainability: are they demonstrating strong sustainability initiatives on the property? Location, right? Accessibility, views. Is it a convenient location?
Mass tourism.
Yeah, what kind of, right? Are they exposed to more mass tourism, or are they still very much off the beaten path? And then, you know, character and story. We want you to know exactly where you are when you walk in the lobby, right? Everything about a real authentic property should feel like the place that you're in. And then the story of the owners, right? Understanding the ownership's involvement within that community and within that facility is really important to us. And then, of course, the basics, right? Amenities, making sure that we have great amenities that are still at very, very high levels of hospitality, so that we're not compromising on those just to stay in an off the beaten path type of experience. And then, of course, food and culinary. That's a huge part here in Italy, is understanding that this chilometro zero, which we call farm to table, here it's a standard, right? Is being implemented at a high level. And so understanding that they have a really strong food program that, again, reflects the local culinary traditions of that community are really important. So this is how we come up with our brand score. And so on each accommodation, you'll see a brand score that is associated with that system. Awesome. So we'll talk a little bit about Matera. This is a really exciting place. I'm sure a lot of you guys may have heard of it by now. For those of you that haven't, Matera, again, is located in Basilicata, so just west of Puglia. And it's the entire historic city center is considered a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So this is a really particular city, not just for Italy, but also for Europe. So right after World War II, the entire city was considered the shame of Italy. And the reason for that was that it was one of the most inhospitable places in terms of hygiene and living conditions. It was one of the poorest cities in all of Europe post-war. And so as a result, the Italian government stepped in after unification and decided that they were going to build basically state housing all around this area in a completely new section of the city, which is now considered the new Matera. And so everybody was basically evicted out of the old city. And the living conditions, just to give you an idea, is people were living literally in caves with their farm animals, right? And so there were disease was rampant, and there were just all kinds of issues with the hygiene of living here. And so everybody was basically forced out. Years and years later, people started recognizing the historic city as this really unique place because of all these sassi, which are like basically caves, yeah, right? Stones that are just, so you've got all these caves that kind of pock the entire area. And so what they started doing is they started turning these caves into high-end accommodations. And over time, people began reinvesting into the historic city center. And so now what you have today is this amazing revitalization of this beautiful place that has a significant story in human history. It's also one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. So this has, I mean, this has dwellings that go way beyond the Roman Empire. So it's just a really, really cool place. And of course, it's been used for films such as the James Bond movies. It's also been used for Passion of the Christ, right? Because parts of this city resemble Jerusalem. And so there's some really amazing cultural aspects to this place as well. And just a side note, when you guys are picking hotels in Matera, be sure to look for the accommodations that are actually in Sassi and not in Matera Nuova, which is the new part of the city, because the two couldn't be more different. They're very distinct. So it's much better to stay in the actual historic city. So we'll talk a little bit about the first accommodation here. So this is by far a favorite accommodation. And for us, the significance of Sextancio is that it is really the pioneer of this movement of revitalizing Matera through these Sassi hotels. And so they really pioneered. What they did is they took a very minimalist approach. So what you see here is one of the rooms that they have. And these rooms are a little bit spread out through one small section. So it's all very much intertwined and connected, but it's not the typical, one block hotel that you would think of. So basically what they did is they kept as much of the caves intact as possible, including a lot of the furniture that was abandoned. And so they've repurposed a lot of this stuff in a very tasteful way that tells the story of these places. But this this is, as you can see, a 5 on our brand score. So this is a really highly rated accommodation for a lot of those reasons. There are other cave hotels, and some of them have done what we would consider too much work, right? So if you walk into some of those lobbies, it's like they've taken the cave and they've tried to kind of make it a little bit too polished, if that makes sense.
Right, but of course this is a cave experience, right? Somebody who doesn't like being in a darker space and claustrophobic, this is why this is perfect for a 1/2 night stay, because it is a true cave experience. So going to a place like Matera where you have such rich history, it's almost like experiencing it, of course, with all the luxury and the amenities, but people that need a little more modern, definitely there's other options as well.
Absolutely. And one other thing to consider too, anytime you're sending a client to Matera, is accessibility. Matera is full of staircases, especially the old city, right? So if they're traveling to some of these places, especially if they're staying in this accommodation, there are stairs to get there. Of course, they have the porter for their bags when they arrive. It's not a very long trek from the street, but there are stairs. And so it's just something to be aware of throughout the entire city. If they're doing a guided walk or they just want to walk on their own to get around, it's a lot of stairs. All right. Awesome. Okay. Great. So that's our accommodation in Matera. So you want to talk a little bit about...
Yeah, so really quickly, going from Matera to Bari, the Valle d'Itria, wherever you're going in Puglia, this really cool town, just 20-25 minutes from Matera, called Altamura. And I don't know if any of you have heard of it. I've definitely known about it growing up only because of its bread, right? The pane di Altamura is spectacular. The city itself is actually really cool, little town. So again, a stop is really great. And then you can stop at one of the bakeries that makes this insanely delicious bread that it's actually, protected, just like, wine has the DOC and mozzarella has the DOP for the bread that kind of protects this culinary tradition.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so let's quickly talk about the Valle d'Itria. Again, there's other places in Puglia, but we're going to focus on Valle d'Itria and Salento. It's you fly into Bari, like Jet said, and the most iconic thing in the Valle d'Itria, among even the beautiful coastline, but is the century-old olive trees. This is where you have the oldest olive trees in all of Italy. Extraordinary extra virgin olive oil. You got places that I'm sure you've heard of, like the Trulli of Alberobello. The Trulli, you can find them scattered in the Valle d'Itria. You don't just have to go to Alberobello. But of course, Alberobello is a place. Yes, mass tourism. Yes, there are tour buses. But if you go maybe after 5, 6 p.m. at night, when all the big tour buses have gone after their day trip, you can still have an amazing experience, and it's worth visiting once. You also have other famous towns like Polignano, where the song Volare was written, Monopoli, and all those other little towns like La Città Bianca, the white city of Stuni, Logorotondo, Martina Franca, again, all within a close proximity. And then you also have this amazing Grotte di Castellana, which is if I'm not mistaken, one of the longest tunnels of caves definitely in all of Italy, but perhaps in even all of Europe. So it's really, really cool to visit. The beaches up here are beautiful. Like if you stay in Monopoli, if you go by the Parco delle Dune Costiere, which if any of you are familiar with Canne Bianche, that's where it's at, right on the Parco delle Dune Costiere. They're beautiful, but depending on season, especially when there's high tide, you actually don't have a lot of beach left. It's a lot more wild, a lot rockier. So if your clients are looking more for relaxing long stretches of beaches, going down to the Salento coast would be a little bit more appropriate.
Awesome. All right. So fun fact. So the Trulli were actually developed by farmers as a way to avoid paying property taxes. And so the way that they did this is back in I think the 1300s or so, the property tax the property tax was only due if your building was completed. And so as the assessors would come, the farmers, they have this keystone that's hidden somewhere in the Trulli, where the master builders of these structures would build them in such a way that if you remove the keystone, the entire roof would collapse. And of course, it's made of stone, so it could easily be put back together. And so that's what they would do, is when the tax assessor would come, they would remove the keystone and the entire roof would collapse, and they would claim that their property has not been finished. And so they would avoid taxes in this way, which I think was really genius. So it's just a kind of a cool story about it. Anyway, yeah, I could spend a lot of time on that.
Yeah.
So Massaria d'Anna Chiara, this is actually right outside of Monopoli. So it's just a quick 10 to 15 minute drive into the city. It's a really, really beautiful property. So it's only 4 rooms. So this property is really great for groups that are traveling just privately, as well as families. So they've got an amazing little rooftop terrace that you can see. And then the pool is just absolutely stunning.
The whole property is surrounded by olive groves, right? So if you have, again, somebody that wants more of that villa, olive grove immersive experience without having other guests at a hotel, this is a great option because you have that exclusivity, that privacy of a private villa, yet with the amenities, right, and the services of a hotel.
Yeah, fantastic cooking classes here as well. and some of the best breakfasts I think I've ever had in my life, with like the best focaccia you can find. It's an amazing little place.
Yeah, and it's on a run and operated. So it's really cool because you get to meet the couple, the husband and wife who restore the property. It had a really beautiful vision. So again, those properties really come to life when you get to learn about their story. And of course, we don't have time to dive deep into each one, but our hope is that one day you can get there and hear about it from them for yourself.
Awesome.
So another great masseria, which again, kind of under the radar. If you go on their website, you're like, oh my God, Karen, their website sucks. Absolutely, right? And that's why we're here to help them, because we've actually been there and they're amazing places, but they're not super Insta famous, you know, their website, all of the things, right, that you would have at a Borgo Ignazza that has a very high marketing budget. This is quite the opposite. So this masseria, it's incredible. It's in Fasano. It's actually 10 minutes from Borgo Ignazza, a little bit inland, but again, 10 minutes from the coastline. Only 14 rooms. The property has like a mini golf course on it. It is kid friendly as well. So they also have a little kids playground. What I love about this property is that for 14 rooms, the grounds are gigantic. I mean, the grounds are so big. So the kids playground is hidden away so that if you have a couple, you know, that doesn't want to deal with the kids, there's definitely enough space for everyone to go around. They have an amazing natural saltwater pool. Spa, again, all of the restaurant on site. So all of these incredible amenities, but their accommodations are also, some are in the main building and some are spread out around the property. So it's really great. Again, if you want privacy, restored masseria experience, but yet all of the services of a hotel. Again, we're going to focus more on the experiences on this one, guys. So we're just trying to move quickly, some alternative options to some of the more famous that you may have heard in the Valle d'Itria. Masseria Matera is another great one, restored masseria. It's right outside of Polignano, so it's great because they have a complimentary shuttle that in 5 to 10 minutes takes you to the center of Polignano, so you can take all of your photos, but then you can retreat to your masseria. And I would say this property is perfect for somebody who needs a little bit more of that white glove. You know, all of the other properties that we saw are also high-end, but this one, I would say, if you have somebody that it's more of that Borgo Ignazia client and you want to give them an alternative, this would be a great option. They have an amazing view because they're up elevated. Go ahead and scroll for me. They have, I mean, you can't see it so much from here, but you can see the town of Polignano in the distance, and obviously you have those stunning sea views, farm-to-table restaurant, they have infinity pool, they have a spa. And again, 5-star travelers seeking luxury and exclusivity with easy access to a destination such as Polignano. All right, the last one for the Valle d'Itria, and then we'll talk about some amazing experiences, is Don Ferrante, which many of you may already know. It is kind of one of the only that we know of high-end options right in the town of Monopoli. Now, middle of July, August, probably wouldn't recommend it, but spring and fall, because Monopoli just gets very, very crowded. Unfortunately, it's gone discovered. It's beautiful. But if you have clients going slightly in the shoulder season, this will be a great option. They do close down in the winter, so pay attention to their opening times. They have 10 rooms. This place, it is not, can you please scroll? Not really accessible for people that cannot do stairs and cannot do tight spaces, because there's for example, the rooftop terrace, there's a tight staircase that you need to go on to get up to. Some of the rooms as well, some are kind of more downstairs, almost underground. So again, accessibility is just something to keep in mind, but it's a beautiful high-end accommodation. So if you want somebody that wants to be right in town, like I said, especially when the daily crowds leave, this is an incredible living the local life, especially in the evening when it empties out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you want to talk about you?
No, this e-bike experience is really, really cool. So you're actually going through a private olive grove, and a lot of these trees are very, very old, some over 1,000 years old. And so you start off going through this beautiful olive grove, and you end at the Frantoio, which is one of the older Frantoios in the area for sure. And it's actually it looks like a beautiful masseria, right? And it's still being run by the same family, and they have got just a really amazing take on the right way to produce olive oil, right? And so you go through this entire tasting experience. You see how the olive oil is pressed, processed, understand what the difference is, and actually how to procure it back in the States in a way that's responsible and does support directly the producers. And then from there, you go back into the olive grove, and you end with a really great lunch experience at a Caseificio, which is just the cheesemaker that's local. And the guy that does this experience was born and raised in this little community, so he knows everybody here. He's a really cool young guy, entrepreneur that's, again, kind of part of this new wave of sustainable small tourism that's starting to show up in this part of Italy. So you have this amazing cheese tasting lunch, and then on your way back, you actually stop at this really cool place that doesn't look very conspicuous when you get there, but it's in the middle of the olive grove. And keep this in mind, it's just on private property, and it looks like just a bunch of holes in the ground. But as you start to go around, he shows you where this what looks like a cave entrance is, but there's this beautiful fresco on the wall. And what it was is it was a place where Christians were being persecuted, and they started their own church and congregation there. And this is where they would hide out and meet. And so this is a really old place in the middle of what feels like nowhere. And there's no one around. There's no archaeological dig happening. You're just there with, 1,000-plus-year-old, artifacts just laying around you in this experience. And it's really surreal. So for me, that was obviously a highlight, but overall, the experience is really, it's really an incredible way to see this part of the world.
And just one quick thing to add here, and then I'll answer the questions. I couldn't figure out how to chat with the double screen, but in terms of the e-biking, it's not very intense, okay? So it's a leisure e-bike. You're going maybe a couple of kilometers on flat terrain, just like you see in this photo. It's more of the experience of riding amongst the olive groves, getting from place to place. We have people that never ridden an e-bike. Obviously, you want to, come from bike, but they've done it. And, people that are like in their 70s and 80s have done it and have had a great time. So it's not a very intense biking experience. To answer a couple of the questions, how is the end of September to visit? I love the end of September. Love the end of September for weather and all sorts of reasons. The wine, it's great. Of course, depending on where you go, it's getting busy, right? So again, we're getting all of the requests we're getting for Puglia, and even our own small group trips that we're starting to push further and further out, closer to November. They're happening in the fall. So choose wisely. September is a great month to visit. Just choose wisely where you stay. And if you have to visit those towns such as Alberobello, Stuni, Monopoli, just be mindful of the daily tour buses. Is there a pool here at Don Ferrante? There's a small pool. Yes, there is a small pool on the terrace. Keep the questions coming, guys. We'll try to answer them as we go.
Awesome. So this is another really amazing experience. So this is in the town of Grottaglie, which is a great little sort of way station on the way from the Val d'Itria down to Salento.
It's actually not quite in the Valle d'Itria, so.
Right. Yeah, it's not quite in the Val d'Itria, but it's sort of between the two, right? But basically what this is this community is well known for its ceramics and just this very old tradition of ceramic making in the area. And so this is a really interesting experience where you're invited into this wonderful man's home who's actually in the industry of ceramics with his family.
He makes them?
He makes as well, but he has procured this home that when he basically started digging for a bike garage to build. And he ended up coming across this old ancient Roman floor of an old palace. And from that, things just started showing up. Every time he would try and dig for his garage, he would find a new archaeological site on his property. And from that, he started to find all of these ancient ceramics that he's just collected. And he has built this incredible private museum in his home that you're invited into. And it's a very intimate experience when you're going through this thing, and you're getting to see and touch artifacts that are, again, thousands of years old, and some of which look practically new. part of this, you're even seeing another old Christian church that was built that he believes was a Templar church because it has a lot of the original artifacts in there that would indicate that. So it's an incredible experience that feels just very custom and very unique. Again, you're not getting the tour bus experience. This is something that's very, very one-on-one.
And we hope tour buses never make it there, right? Because of course we want to protect those partners, and we're also mindful when we share them on our webinars and, you know, with Tracy, because this is not the partner that wants to get Insta famous, right? You know, they're doing what they love. They're opening their home to people. They have no idea what that experience is worth, and we're trying to help them out with that. But it's very important that we send the right clients to those type of experiences.
And what's crazy is this guy could be an incredibly wealthy man overnight. He really could.
To sell everything.
He chooses to keep he chose to keep all of these pieces where he found them, to honor the people that made them. And he felt like it was the right thing to do. So he has this sort of moral obligation about it that's really admirable. And then, of course, as a part of this too, you are invited to his workshop, so you're able to see his full ceramic things that you can actually buy and take home. And then he does offer the hands-on like ceramic workshop itself as well. So just a really overall like very cool comprehensive
Doesn't speak a word of English, so we always have a guide going and translating.
And she's fantastic. Yeah, she knows him very well. She's worked with him for a long time too. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about some of the other experiences that we offer in the areas, such as horseback riding, obviously boats, but we wanted to dig a little bit deeper in the ones that are our favorite. So let's move towards Salento, which of course we like to call it in Italy, the Salento coast, but there's also the Salento countryside, right? The Salento is the entire southern portion, again, flying into Brindisi, the province. And if you've had a chance to go here the last few years, unfortunately, the olive groves look like graveyards because they've been hit by a virus, the Xylella, that is exterminated. So many of them. I can't tell you a number, but it's a lot. You'll notice right away if you go. Unfortunately, those trees were not as old and as resistant as the one in the Valle d'Itria, which thankfully, right, have not been hit. But you have to understand that so many families lost their entire livelihood, right? That's where, even in the South, what people lived off of. So, you know, obviously there's a lot of good morale and rebirth coming, but it's something that when we're taking clients and we're like, oh, what's happened? It's important to let them know also the reality about what can happen where your entire livelihood depends on the sale of olive trees. I mean, Puglia is the main producer in Italy of extra virgin olive oil. Salento coast, known for its Baroque architecture. Lecce, the Florence of the South, if you had a chance to visit, incredible little city. There's also some very interesting towns that we've discovered not too long ago, actually, that are highly Greek, and they even speak the Greek language, such as the little town of Kalimera. So again,
not just the Greek language, but ancient Greek,
yes,
right? A dead language. The entire city still speaks it.
They teach it in the schools. Yeah.
It's one of the last places in the world that does that. It's a really interesting place. Cool.
You know, lots of beach towns. Again, as we head south, and this is part of the reason why I would say, and you can correct me if you think differently, but a lot of the Americans I talk to, they only go as far as the Valle d'Itria, right? Because of those virtuoso property, because of the Instagram places, not a lot of people have gone further south. And it's also because a lot of those beach towns in San Foca, Otranto, Gallipoli, there's not actually a lot of high-end 5-star what you would find on your virtuoso property. So they're working towards it. There's still a lot of beautiful masserie, because also masserie, they're not just in the north, right? They're all over the region. In fact, in the past, they were even more prevalent in the south than they were in the north. So, but in terms of on the coastline, high-end good hotels, if you have any, please let us know. We're looking for some, but we'll show you some options that are very close by the coast that we think would be great alternatives. And then the famous rock formations such as Torre dell'Orso with its Poesia, La Grotta della Poesia, which is that, we have a picture of it, but that hole in the ground where people go and dive and snorkel, Sant'Andrea. And then, you know, in Salento, again, just like we don't go to Puglia without Matera, we can go to Salento without participating in a pizzica celebration with the music and the tradition. Okay, so let's talk about Lecce really quick. One of our favorite places is Palazzo Guido, and what makes this place so special, on top of the actual palazzo itself, is the owner, Geltrude. It's got an incredible history. The property's been in her family for generations. Then they lost it. It was taken by the bank, and with a lot of sacrifice and hardship, she was able to get it back, and she transformed it into this unique 6 rooms. It's actually 7 with the kind of detached apartment that they have residents, and they also have an amazing rooftop terrace, which, you know, there are a lot in Lecce for private residences, but with hotels sometimes they're hard to come by. She even has this little spa, which again adds another layer of amenities that your guests can enjoy. Obviously, you step outside and you have the whole town at your fingertip. Panoramic terrace. Geltrude really 5-star in hospitality. She's there from before the guests arrive to the moment they leave. And again, the place really comes alive when she tells you about her grandfather's rooms and every piece of furniture. So this is a place people don't like. It's, you know, I would consider it like a 4-star, but if people don't like places that are lived in and carry that history and that experience of sleeping in a historic palazzo, probably not the right fit for them, right? You can go to Palazzo Bozzicorso, La Fiermontina. Again, you're paying, you know, 5 times the amount, but that would be more of your absolutely 5-star white glove experience. Okay, and our probably one of our 2 favorite or 3 favorite masserie down in the south is Naturalis. Naturalis, some of you may have heard of it. They do have a lot of Instagram followers. The owner is incredible. He made his career out of natural aloe beauty products. So he sells all over the world, white label for his beauty products made out of aloe. So Martano, the town that it's in, and it's only 15 minutes from Lecce. So this is perfect. You have, again, during the season, somebody wants the privacy, wants to sleep at night, because that's something to consider in Lecce during the season. But yeah, they want easy access to the city within 15, 20 minutes. This is an incredible accommodation. Again, very authentic, restored masseria. You will get to meet the owner, Domenico. He's always around. He does the aloe extraction experience, and he's so proud and passionate. I know some of you here on the call may have even tried it. And in sharing his story, his home, and the power of this plant, the aloe, with travelers. This is where, you know, Jen and I went on a little retreat before we had a company summit, because it's a very calming, relaxing, beautiful place. There's some olive trees, beautiful grounds that you can walk around, pool. And again, for an experience of wellness, rejuvenation, and relaxation, but you're 15 minutes from Lecce, 15 minutes from the coast, have everything in your fingertip. It's incredible. And he will tell you the story on how he really revitalized the town, because this is one of the kind of forgotten towns of out of the many forgotten towns in Salento. And he really employs, because of this beauty making production, you know, half of the people who live there. So he really has an incredible story of supporting the local economy and preserving the traditions.
Yeah, this is also a really cool family owned and operated masseria. This is a very old masseria, and it's again, this is really great. It's only 6 rooms, but they have taken a very minimalist approach to this as well. So
Well, go back for a second.
oh yeah, go ahead.
That little crack that you see in the building, it's not the building falling apart. It was actually preserved by the architect that said the beauty, la bellezza sta nel difetto, like the beauty is in the defect. So he wanted, like Jet was saying, low impact. Everything was restored as much as they could. And the architect really wanted to show, he was like, this is a wise grandma, right? We shouldn't put a bunch of like makeup on her. We should just give her a little lift and show her how she is. So I think that's a very beautiful message there.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I've been here once. She's been here more than once. No, the property, again, there's an emphasis on conservation and preservation of the original architecture and the original purpose of the building. At one point, the building was converted into an old church. There was all kinds of uses for it. At one point, it was a tobacco storage place. I mean, there was all kinds of things. And so like, you can still see little hooks in the wall. There's still evidence of frescoes that are still on parts of the walls in each of the rooms that were original. And so they've maintained all of that. In addition, they've dug up some very ancient artifacts underneath the foundation of the building during renovations, which you can see in the top photo
Yeah,
there.
that room that you see, the architect suite, you can't see it a lot, but on the ground, there's some amphoras down underground that were found as they were doing the renovation work. So they preserved it and made this beautiful, beautiful suite out of it. And I would say, and I'll give it back to Jet, that because this place is not as big, doesn't have as many amenities in some of the other places we talked about, they really get there with their hospitality.
Yeah,
their food, they
for
received
sure.
the Michelin key this year. Their food is incredible. Again, owner run and operated. So really, really amazing experience, but keep going.
Nope, that was it. That is exactly right. Yeah. No, it's a beautiful place.
And it's kind of in the middle, like Cutrofiano, it's in the middle between the East Coast and the West Coast. So in the middle of the countryside, but again, in 25 minutes, you can reach both coastlines. You can go down to Santa Maria di Leuca. So really cool countryside location.
Okay, I think this is the last one. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the last one, and we'll talk about a few experiences. So just bear with us for a few more minutes. Masseria Prosperi, it's again another one of my favorite masseria. And what I love about this place, well, first of all, they have animals. I love animals. They have horses. You can ride the horses only if you're an expert. You are a bike ride away from the beach town of San Foca. So it's really great, again, as a higher end option, very authentic, only 7 rooms, owner run and operated. So you get to learn all about her story and the history of the place. It's a farm with animals. So again, if you have either larger groups, they do rent by the room as well, but you have somebody that wants to hide away in this beautiful retreat, but then have access to the beach town of San Foca, which is a stunning beach town with a lot of the longer sandy white sand stretches of beaches. This is great. If you don't like animals, allergic to horses, probably not the best place. Okay, let's talk about a few of our favorite experiences. Salento by Vintage Car. So we work with a partner who owns a couple of these vintage vans, and depending on where you're staying, we can actually pick you up, start from Lecce, start from pretty much all of those masserie that we just showed you. And then you go very slow, because those cars go very slowly through some of the countryside and the coastline, and you get to stop at Torre di Sant'Andrea, which are those faraglioni that are pictured here on the bottom left. You get to go by the Grotta della Poesia cave. You can, during the season, you can stop, swim, snorkel. The little vans convert into like a really cool aperitivo, and the guys that run the experience are really cool and just flexible. And then we often combine it with a stop at a winery to do a winery tour, tasting and lunch, and then we go back to the accommodation. So this can be as short as a 3 to 4 hour thing, or as long as an 8-hour day. But again, the whole purpose is to take in the landscape very slowly in the company of those vintage vans. Keep in mind, if you're going July, August, those vans, actually the AC, just go with no AC, right? They are working to fix it a little bit, but you open all the window, the thing converts up, but definitely something to keep in mind if you have somebody that July and August must have their AC cranked up. Lecce stone carving experience. This is another super authentic, sensorial, slow and immersive experience that we love. This guy, Renzo, he is actually the guy who invented the lamp with the Lecce stone. So he's the first guy that literally put a light bulb into a Lecce stone creation and became famous. He has got exhibits all over the world, and he does this really cool workshop experience just 10-15 minutes outside of Lecce in his private home. So what you see there, it's its private workshop. This is something we can do privately or join a small group if that's what your clients are looking for. And again, they get to make a piece of art that they get to take home, but more importantly, they get to hang out with a local, listen to his story, have lunch in his home, and again, very beautiful, immersive, and slow experience. Okay, some of the other experiences, again, there's a lot, but we just wanted to focus on some of our favorite ones. Horseback riding, that can be done everywhere, but even more so in the regional park, whether it's the Park of the Dune Costiere in the north, where Canne Bianche is, or down by the Salento coast. It's a really great experience. And just, if you have clients that want to go horseback riding, just really be mindful about letting us know the level of experience, right? Because then we can also choose the place. Some places have stricter safety guidelines and some are more leisure, especially if you're experienced. So just let us know what your client is looking for. Visiting the Grotte di Castellana, which we mentioned briefly earlier. We've also recently added a new experience in Lecce, which is really cool. It's a honeybee experience. Basically, they're making, they have those honey, what do you call that? The
hives. Yeah, they have these hives on the rooftops.
On the rooftops of
and the honey, the bees actually pollinate a lot of the caper plants that are famous.
Coming out of the rocks.
And so the honey has like hints of caper in it. It's a really unique honey that they make from these urban bees. It's a cool experience.
Yeah. And then in terms of boat, we have everything from the little fishing boat to the yacht and everything in between. And we can do that obviously everywhere in Puglia, as long as there's a little port to get the boat on.
Awesome. So that is the summary of a lot of the things that we offer and that we do in Puglia. Of course, there are a lot of things that we couldn't all fit in this time. But really quickly, we do offer a small group trip to Puglia, and the one this year has already been sold out, but we do have a waiting list for clients. And so we've started to really work a lot with our travel advisors on our small group trips, because they typically are really great for solo travelers. They're great for people that are very budget conscious, but still want that sort of high-end and off the beaten path immersive experience that they provide. All of our small group trips are fully guided by our local facilitators. So one of our team is actually there that is guiding the group through. These trips are anywhere from 8 to 10 people max. So they're still very small, which gives us a lot of flexibility. And of course, we have private transfers throughout the entire experience. We typically stay in one region, so we're hyper focused on one region. So
except for this one, Puglia and Matera.
Puglia and Matera, right? But it's the same area, right? And so we're staying in the south, and we're spending a lot more time in those areas as opposed to trying to hop around and see everything. The way that we work with travel advisors on our small group trips is basically we offer a 10% commission upon client registration, which we pay out upon client registration. So you can invoice us that commission as soon as your client registers, as opposed to waiting until the conclusion of the trip, like most of the custom trips. One thing that we're also starting to do is we are starting to host some fam calls. So what this is it's just a more intimate kind of webinar experience, but it's a little bit more one-on-one. So we only have up to 10 participants at a time, and we walk you through the entire itinerary, and it's a good opportunity for you to really learn how to sell that region a little bit more and ask us more in-depth questions. So it gives us more opportunity to have some dialogue around these particular partners, as well as the individual itinerary and the region as a whole.
And Tracy, we'll get you those details on the next one that we'll plan on doing.
Yeah, exactly. So just to kind of give you an idea, this is sort of a snapshot of our Puglia and Matera, Secrets of Southern Italy. Again, Karen mentioned that we're pushing this towards the fall. So as we're kind of moving a little bit further away from peak season to give people a better experience. And then again, we're starting in Matera, we're moving through the Val d'Itria, and then ending in Salento. So very similar to
on our website, you'll see the accommodations that are two of the ones we discussed today for this year. But of course, because we have so many amazing partners, next year we'll probably switch them up. So if you have clients that want to go, we already have a waiting list. If we reach the number, we may do one in the fall later this year. Otherwise, it will be in 2026. But let us know if you have any questions. And go ahead and scroll. I did want to mention before, I know we're starting to lose people. So yeah, so we're doing something a little bit different in just a couple of weeks, actually. One of our amazing team members who speak 5 languages is 10 times smarter than both Jerry combined. She is based in Lisbon, and she will be hosting a webinar on the amazing Azores, which is one of our favorite off the beaten path destinations in the world for the little that we know. And so she'll be telling you guys all about this incredible archipelago, and also talking about our small group trip that we'll be doing there this summer. So if you're interested, you can join us for that webinar. I don't know if you already inserted the time for
Yeah,
that.
it is. So this is actually pretty quick. It's only a couple weeks away. So go ahead and register as soon as you can if you're interested to learn more about this really cool destination. We had to do this one a little early because Karen and I are going to be out of town. March is a big travel month for us. We're gone most of the month. So we wanted to make sure and be a part of this one too, since we've done it.
Yes, and then the very last thing, and then we'll let you guys go. When Jet sends the email to all of you with the webinar recording, and we have the feedback form, if you have a chance, please fill it out. I know in the past, some people have filled it out asking us to send them the recordings of other webinars. However, they never put their name and email on there. So it's optional, so you can keep it confidential. But if you are asking us to follow up with you, please make sure that you are putting your name and email on that feedback form. So.
Great. And then just to let you guys know, after each webinar, we'll always send out an email just with the recording link for you, so you can always reference that back. And then, of course, we're here for you if you have any questions. We also provide you a link to our new travel advisor form. So if you haven't worked with us yet, you want to start working with us, we ask that we just set up a quick one-on-one intro call just to get to know your business a little bit, introduce you to how we work in our process in a little bit more depth, and make sure there's good brand alignment so that we can deliver the most for your clients as possible.
How is the weather in the fall? How do temps compare to other areas of Italy? Anytime you go in the south, fall weather is still swimming weather. Now, of course, like I said, we're not, weather forecasting people, and the weather's constantly changing, but this season it's getting longer. It's staying colder later, like May, even last year it was colder, but it's getting longer. So October, November, people are still swimming in places like Puglia, Sicily, and Sardinia. So if you do have to choose between spring and fall, be mindful that the last couple of years trend have been a little bit colder later until middle to end of May, and staying warmer until the end of the fall. So, but thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, of course, minimum budget is 10,000. No, that wouldn't necessarily be per week. It's more like the request, right? Because of course, depending on when they're going, that 10,000 is going to take you a lot further, depending on how many people, destination, time of year. So that's just kind of the minimum budget for the overall itinerary.
And those are custom trips,
Yes.
just to be clear. So
Yeah.
certainly not in the realm of our small group trips. Those are significantly lower than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. Does anybody have any other questions before we let you go? Great. Well, thank you all so much for your time. We certainly do appreciate it. We know everyone's busy as we're starting to get into the travel season again. So hope to hear from you again. Give us your feedback. Always open to learning, and we look forward to connecting with you, hopefully on a one-on-one.
So thank you, guys.
Thank you. Ciao.